Hello, my friends. Welcome to another episode of Deep True Crime. I'm Manny Rodriguez. In today's episode, we are continuing the coverage of what we have found out this morning off of the affidavit that has finally been released as to what do they have on Bryan that seems like he's the right man. Let me tell you, if you've not followed it, I went through the whole affidavit on my channel this morning when it was released. I'm not going to do that again. What I did promise was I'm going to share little bite-sized incidents from this case. And in that affidavit, I shared about one of the surviving roommates coming face to face with the alleged killer. Here we are. Bryan Kohberger is now back in Idaho facing the charges of him being responsible for this heinous crime. And so we're continuing to learn more, but I went through the whole affidavit. Mind-blowing things were shared in that affidavit. A lot of it. And so as I promised, I was going to break it down into bite-sized, easy to follow portions of it. And so one of the roommates in the University of Idaho murder house came face to face with the killer just moments after the slaughter of her friends. That's according to the police report that I shared this morning. Dylan Mortensen, who was one of the surviving roommates, she described her creepy encounter with a black-clad figure when she opened her bedroom door after hearing a noise a little after 4 a.m. This police affidavit, it states that Mortensen stated she opened her door and saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her. She described the figure as 5 feet 10 inches or taller, male, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. The male walked past her as she stood in a frozen shock phase. That's what she described him as, 5'10". We did come to find out that she was very close. He was about 6 feet, 185 pounds. The male walked towards the back sliding glass door, which is what we've all believed that was the entrance that the person had used to get in. And he walks to the back sliding glass door. Mortensen then locked herself in her room after seeing the male. Moments earlier, the mysterious murderer had knifed Ethan, Xana, Maddie, and Kaylee to death. Another housemate, Bethany Funk, 21, was unharmed in the attack. So her, Bethany, and Dylan, lucky to be alive. Dylan more so. What horror she had to face. The perp went right by her. Wow. Even though her encounter happened at 4 a.m., it is not explained why police did not arrive until around midday, almost 8 hours later. My thought is she's the unconscious one. She's the one that fell unconscious. And so there was a report, a 911 call of an unconscious person. I'm guessing she's probably the unconscious one. Because why wouldn't she? I don't know. Why wouldn't she call them much, much sooner? Did she not know what happened to her roommates? So it's hard for me to understand. This happened at almost 4 a.m., but the police didn't arrive till 11:58 a.m., something along those lines, many hours later, right? And so the affidavit, it also explains how police linked this to Bryan Kohberger, the suspect. He appeared in Idaho court this morning to be charged with the 4 counts of first degree. And so that's when the charging documents were released. And according to the police report, all 6 people were home by 2 a.m. and the killer struck home around 2 hours later. Mortensen, who lived on the first floor, said she had fallen asleep but was awakened around 4 a.m. when she heard who she thought was Gonsalves say something to the effect of, "There's someone here." She opened her door but could see nothing. Mortensen then opened her door a second time when she heard what she thought was crying coming from Canuto's room. That's according to the police report. It added that Mortensen then said she heard a male voice say something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." The report then states that police believe the murderer left the bloody crime scene, and video collected from nearby residences showed a car matching the description of Kohberger leaving the area. His car, which has been later described as his car, it is seen leaving the area. That is that white Hyundai Elantra that we now know is actually a 2015. Both these girls are the roommates. You can see the one on the left is Dylan, the one on the right is Bethany. And both of them were in the house at that time. Literally, they were both in the house at that time. And truth is, this is so heartbreaking even to know that she was that close to the perp. Literally, like, holy mackerel, you're lucky. You're so lucky. You know, the affidavit, it doesn't explain why the alarm was not raised with police until almost midday or who raised it. It doesn't even say who actually made the call. The affidavit, it doesn't say anything along those. After they've arrived, Moscow police, who made this grim discovery of the bodies, which is also described in the affidavit. Corporal Brett Payne, he described how he was walked through the scene by one of the officers who first responded to this incident. He said, as he approached the room, I could see a body, later identified as Canuto, laying on the floor. Canuto was deceased with wounds which appear to have been caused by an edged weapon. Also in the room was a male, later identified as Chapin, also deceased with wounds later determined to be caused by sharp injuries. And truth is, now that we know more of this, one of the things that I thought was like that Ethan was the one on the floor, maybe being the hero because he heard something. But come to find out, that's not actually the case. And the one on the floor was probably, I don't know who was on the floor. Someone was on the floor, actually. He then described ascending to the third floor where he found the other two bodies. He wrote in this affidavit, as I entered this bedroom, I could see two females in the single bed in the room. Both Gonsalves and Mogan were deceased with visible stab wounds. This is where it's extremely hard to know. Because not only that, Payne, he also said a knife sheath was discovered in the room that had a sample of DNA on it, which was later linked to Kohberger and forms part of the police case against him, as well as cell phone data placing him near the scene and the attacks. This is far from over, my friends. We are just getting started. What do you think about this? I'm not going to make this a long one. I want to make sure that I'm just giving you bite size so you don't have to watch or listen through the whole affidavit. If you don't, we'll just give you little bits and pieces, the highlights around this. I'm Manny Rodriguez. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Deep True Crime. My whole purpose is to be a voice for these victims. My whole purpose is to be a voice for you so you know what could go wrong in this crazy world we live in. I'm Manny Rodriguez. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Deep True Crime. Talk to you soon. Peace.